So, in a controversial vein today, I shall continue. And I'm not going to do this hopefully, in a preachy way. I just want to have a debate and or get you thinking, perhaps. So Kurt and I were discussing the idea of meat eating. And I do tend to agree, and I think the science is out on it. I have a couple of other scientific friends, that have told me that, especially in younger life, meat's pretty much essential, and that, the integration of nutrients there might be something more there, but at minimum that seems very useful to the growing body of a young being, a young human. And I have not eaten meat for most of my life, so I know that it can be done fairly well in adulthood and adolescence as well. I think it does take a little bit more vigilance, and not something that's typically that stressed at adolescence. But so yeah, you're not getting the ease of nutrients perhaps that you would get from eating meat. There is other health benefits, I think, from doing it, though. So we have this. So I'm not here to preach, as I said. This is just a conversation about eating levels of sentience, in a sense. If you postulate, for example, that sentience goes all the way down, and this is something a few of my favorite philosophers talk about. So the idea would be to eat the lowest on the food chain, in a sense, so that, wherever you feel comfortable drawing the line is where you draw the line. It's not me to decide, that's you to decide. But this argument might help you narrow that. So I do now occasionally sometimes eat fish, because personally I feel it's an easy way for me to get certain nutrients that I hadn't been getting before. Although I might go back to vegetarianism if I can get growing most of my own food. I would prefer that, but right now, due to a number of time factors and stuff, I have been eating a bit of fish. And why I say that there seems to be a developmental spectrum of sentience that goes from roughly animals with a reptilian brainstem, or those even before that, and then to animals with a mammalian limbic system, and then we have humans. So most people would say, of course, it's wrong for you to eat another human, right? Well, you might argue, that there's a spectrum, that it's more wrong to eat, a mammal than it is to eat a reptile, and more wrong to eat a reptile than it is even to eat a fish, perhaps. And that would be, the reasoning for that would be that there's the sentience of that being, the ability, the novelty almost that being expresses. And then more wrong to eat a fish than it is to eat vegetables, and maybe even more wrong to eat vegetables than it is to fruit. There's some people called fruitarians, believe it or not. So, this is the ground we're playing with here. That you're gonna the potential here is to look at where you feel comfortable drawing the line, and then draw it there. Some people might want to draw it at eating chickens, and then some people might want to eat the mammals. Something to note about mammals that I've found interesting is they have a limbic system, right? So not only are you really satisfying their instinctual and biological needs, but you're also actually having to sort of satisfy their emotional needs. And I think that, it just makes sense that if they are not allowed to live that life of emotion to the degree, that at least to the degree to which there's some resonance with other, then you're denying an essential part of their existence. You're heavy-handedly playing them as machines when they're not. You know, a lot of our industrialized farms make it out like machines, make these beings out like machines, and I don't think that's a very fair thing. Um, Pretty cruel, in other words. Uh, and so, you know, you're denying them the ability to have an emotional relation with another being, you know, and they're capable of that. Um, Even though cows might look dumb, and I think part of the reason that they've become so docile and so forth is that denial, and even increasingly so in the industrialized system that we have now. Furthermore, we're feeding them GMO foods, which, you know, is integrated in their body, which we eat, which, you know, certainly doesn't have other good effects. So, I mean, I would say the elite are treating us much like cattle, much like sheep. But it doesn't mean that we should continue that. And in fact, by stopping that, we're going to stand with integrity to help mitigate and alleviate these sorts of problems, perhaps. Um, but yeah, anyways, you know, free range animals makes more sense, right? Just from a logic, it costs more, but you know, we are extracting their life. So, you know, if we're going to eat the mammals, I think that there is at least there should be at least some moral culpability here. Um, so again, I don't want to say don't do this. I don't think that's my place to judge, but I do want to place arguments out there that make good, reasonable sense to me. Um, that you know, these mammals have more needs, and these needs, if you're gonna kill them, they ought to be at least met for the life that they have. And then similarly, you know, fish, really, what kind of needs do they have? It's not really a very, you know, they need food. Spawning is kind of maybe important, so maybe leaving them in the natural environment. A lot of the fishermen's, you know, I don't want to get too long-winded here, but, you know, they're driven by many economic factors that if we augmented the economic system would be fixed too. So, you know, I think we can have a more sustainable system if we have a more sustainable economics. But I just wanted to throw that argument out there. Be well.